Imagine devoting your entire life to chasing something, believing with every fiber of your being that you are moving toward a better future, only to one day realize that the very thing you pursued was an illusion, a deception so deeply ingrained that no one ever questioned it. What if everything you've been told about progress, about humanity's grand ascent toward a brighter tomorrow, was nothing more than a comforting lie? Today, we are going to uncover one of the greatest illusions in human history, a deception so powerful that it has shaped entire civilizations, influenced philosophy, politics, and even our very sense of purpose. And at the heart of this revelation is a warning from Friedrich Nietzsche, a philosopher who dared to challenge everything we take for granted. Nietzsche saw what most people were too afraid to see. He understood that the concept of progress, the belief that humanity is constantly advancing toward something better, was not only misleading but also dangerous. And as we unravel his warning, you may start to see the world differently. You may begin to question the foundations of everything you believe, but stay with me until the end, because the final revelation will change how you see your own life, your decisions, and the path ahead. Think about it. Since childhood, we are taught that history is a story of progress. We hear that science, technology, and moral advancements have propelled humanity forward, that we are always improving, that the world is always getting better. But have you ever stopped to ask, better for whom? Better in what way? If we step back and look beyond the surface, we see a paradox. We live in an era of unprecedented technological marvels. We can send rockets into space, edit genes, and access infinite knowledge at the touch of a button. And yet, anxiety, depression, and existential crises are at an all-time high. Loneliness is rampant. Despite all this so-called progress, people feel more lost than ever. Nietzsche foresaw this long ago. He warned that humanity's blind belief in progress was a dangerous myth, one that stripped individuals of their true purpose and left them wandering in a meaningless void. He saw that this illusion was built on shaky foundations, created not to empower individuals but to control them, to keep them docile, always striving for an ever-distant goal that would never be reached. To understand Nietzsche's warning, we must first examine one of his most profound ideas, the death of God. When Nietzsche declared, "God is dead," he was not merely making a statement about religion. He was pointing to something much deeper, the collapse of absolute values that had guided humanity for centuries. In the absence of a divine moral compass, society desperately searched for a new foundation, and so it clung to the idea of progress as a replacement for God. This shift had profound consequences. With progress as the new guiding principle, people were led to believe that history has a direction, that there is an inevitable march toward enlightenment, justice, and utopia. But Nietzsche saw through this illusion. He recognized that progress, as most people understood it, was nothing more than a comforting fiction. Think about it. If progress were truly inevitable, why do we see cycles of rise and collapse throughout history? Great civilizations have flourished and fallen. Rome, Greece, the Mayan Empire, countless others. They all believed they were advancing towards something greater, yet they crumbled into ruins. Why should our time be any different? Nietzsche's insight was this: progress is not an external force guiding humanity forward. It is not some universal law of history. It is a construct, a narrative created by those in power to justify their rule, to keep people striving toward an unreachable ideal instead of questioning the reality they live in. The consequences of this illusion are devastating. By believing that history is on an upward trajectory, individuals surrender their responsibility to create meaning in their own lives. They become passive observers, waiting for progress to deliver happiness, success, and fulfillment. And when these things never come, they are left with despair. But Nietzsche did not stop at merely exposing this lie. He also provided a way forward. And in the next part, we will uncover what he believed was the only true path to breaking free from this illusion and reclaiming control over our own destiny. Stay with me, because the most important revelation is yet to come. If progress is not the inevitable force we have been led to believe, then what remains? If history is not an upward march toward perfection, then what should we strive for? These are the questions Nietzsche forces us to confront, and his answer is as unsettling as it is liberating. Rather than relying on external narratives to define meaning, we must create our own. But this is where the true challenge lies. Most people are not prepared for this level of responsibility. The comforting illusion of progress allows us to believe that the world is moving in the right direction, that things will naturally improve over time. It keeps us from having to face the terrifying reality that life has no predetermined purpose, no universal guarantee of improvement, no external force that will save us from ourselves. This is why Nietzsche's warning is so crucial. The idea of progress, while inspiring on the surface, can easily become a form of enslavement. It tricks people into sacrificing their present lives for a distant, uncertain future. It encourages passivity, convincing individuals to wait for the world to change instead of taking control of their own existence. Nietzsche saw this as one of the greatest dangers of modernity. In a world where old values had collapsed, people needed something new to believe in, something to replace the role that religion had once played. And so, progress became the new faith. But instead of worshipping a god, people now worshipped the future. Think about how this manifests in everyday life. How many people postpone their dreams, believing that one day, in some distant future, everything will fall into place? How many people endure unfulfilling jobs, toxic relationships, or empty routines because they have been promised that all of this suffering will eventually lead to something better? This is the trap that Nietzsche wanted us to escape. He understood that true freedom comes not from waiting for progress to deliver meaning, but from creating meaning ourselves. And this is where his concept of the Übermensch, or overman, becomes vital. The Übermensch is Nietzsche's vision of an individual who has freed themselves from the illusions imposed by society. This is a person who does not rely on external narratives to find purpose, but instead creates their own values, their own goals, their own sense of meaning. The Übermensch does not wait for the world to improve. They take full responsibility for shaping their own existence. But this path is not easy. It requires an immense amount of courage, because it means abandoning the security of the herd. It means rejecting the comforting lies that most people accept without question. It means standing alone in the face of uncertainty and taking control of one's destiny without any guarantee of success. Nietzsche believed that most people are unwilling to take this step. Instead, they cling to old illusions, refusing to confront the terrifying truth that life has no inherent meaning. And so, they submit to the false promise of progress, continuing to believe that the future will somehow redeem the struggles of the present. But the longer we cling to this illusion, the more we distance ourselves from true fulfillment. By constantly chasing an imaginary future, we rob ourselves of the only thing that truly exists, the present moment. We become slaves to a dream that will never materialize, forever sacrificing today in the hope of a better tomorrow. So ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent waiting? How many opportunities have you let slip away because you believed that the right time had not yet come? How much of your existence has been dictated by the belief that progress would eventually bring you what you desire? Nietzsche's warning is not meant to leave us in despair. It is meant to wake us up, to shake us free from the trance that keeps us passive. He is not saying that improvement is impossible, but rather that it is not inevitable. And that distinction makes all the difference. The question, then, is what we do with this knowledge. If we accept that history is not moving towards some predetermined utopia, if we acknowledge that progress is not guaranteed, then we are left with only one option: to take control of our own lives in the present. And this is where Nietzsche offers his most powerful insight, one that we will explore in the next section, because beyond the destruction of illusions, beyond the rejection of false promises, lies something even more profound: the possibility of true self-overcoming. Stay with me, because the most powerful truth is still to come. If we accept that the illusion of progress has kept us trapped, what then? What does it mean to take full responsibility for our own existence? Nietzsche's answer is both liberating and daunting. We must undergo a transformation, a process of self-overcoming, in which we no longer passively accept the world as it is, but actively shape ourselves into something greater. This is where his concept of the eternal recurrence becomes crucial. Imagine for a moment that you were forced to relive your life exactly as it is. Every choice, every mistake, every joy and every sorrow, over and over again for eternity. Would you rejoice, knowing that you have lived a life worth repeating? Or would you be filled with dread, realizing that you have squandered your time waiting for something that never came? The eternal recurrence is not meant to be taken as a literal idea. but as a thought experiment, a test of how fully we have embraced our own existence. If the idea of reliving your life fills you with despair, then something must change. You have not yet taken full ownership of your fate. And this is precisely what Nietzsche wants us to confront. He does not want us to resign ourselves to fate. He wants us to take control, to live so boldly, so fully, that we could affirm our existence without hesitation. But how do we do that? The answer lies in a complete shift in perspective. Instead of seeing life as a sequence of struggles leading to a distant reward, we must embrace the struggles themselves. Instead of postponing our happiness for some imagined future, we must find meaning in the present moment. Instead of living according to society's expectations, we must create our own path, our own values, our own definition of success. But make no mistake, this is not an easy path. It requires us to reject comfort, to abandon the false security of external narratives. It demands that we face uncertainty without flinching, that we embrace struggle as an essential part of growth. It is far easier to believe that progress will eventually solve our problems than to confront the reality that nothing will change unless we take action ourselves. Think about it. Every time you hesitate to take a risk, every time you silence your own desires because they do not align with what society expects, you are submitting to the illusion of progress. You are waiting for the world to give you permission to live fully, instead of claiming that right for yourself. But the truth is, no one is coming to save you. No external force will grant you meaning. No future moment will suddenly make everything fall into place. The only time you have is now. The only person who can create meaning in your life is you. This is the ultimate realization that Nietzsche wants us to reach, that the destruction of illusions is not an end, but a beginning, that once we see through the falsehood of progress, we are free to create something real, that we are no longer bound by the past, nor by the expectations of others, but instead we become the architects of our own destiny. So ask yourself, are you living a life that you would be willing to repeat for eternity? If the answer is no, then what are you waiting for? What illusions are still holding you back? What dreams have you postponed because you believed the right moment had not yet come? Because here is the truth that most people refuse to accept. The perfect moment will never come. The world will never hand you permission to be who you were meant to be. If you do not take action now, you never will. And yet there is one final piece to this puzzle, one last challenge that Nietzsche presents to us, perhaps the most difficult of all. Because even if we embrace self-overcoming, even if we reject the illusion of progress and take full control of our existence, there is still one final enemy that must be conquered, and that is where we are going next. Stay with me, because the last revelation is the most important of all. If you have followed this journey so far, then you already understand the weight of Nietzsche's warning. You see now that progress is not a force guiding humanity toward inevitable enlightenment, but rather an illusion that keeps people passive, waiting for meaning to arrive instead of forging it themselves. You understand that history does not move in a straight line, and that those who place their faith in the future risk wasting their present. But even if we break free from this illusion, even if we reject the false promises of society and embrace the challenge of self-overcoming, there is still one final barrier standing between us and true liberation. One last enemy that must be conquered. That enemy is fear. Fear is the great paralyzer. It is the force that keeps people trapped in old patterns, afraid to step beyond what is familiar. Even when we see the truth, even when we recognize the lies that have kept us in chains, fear whispers to us that it is safer to remain as we are, safer to conform, to follow the path laid out for us, to wait just a little longer before we truly live. This is why so few people ever achieve true self-overcoming, because to fully embrace this path, we must confront fear directly. We must strip ourselves of every illusion, every excuse, every false security, and stand completely exposed before the raw reality of existence. And this is where Nietzsche's most radical idea comes into play, the will to power. The will to power is often misunderstood. It is not merely the desire for dominance or control over others. It is something far deeper. It is the drive to become more than you are, to expand, to push beyond limits, to refuse stagnation at all costs. It is the force that compels great individuals to rise above mediocrity, to break free from convention, to create new values instead of inheriting them. For Nietzsche, The will to power is what separates those who passively exist from those who truly live. It is the difference between those who submit to external forces and those who shape their own destiny. The will to power is the antidote to fear because it demands action, movement, transformation. And this is where the greatest challenge lies, because embracing the will to power requires us to let go of everything that makes us comfortable. It requires us to step into the unknown, to confront struggle head-on, to reject every excuse that tells us we are not ready. Most people will never do this. They will remain trapped in the illusion of progress, waiting for something outside themselves to give their life meaning. They will tell themselves that they will change someday, that they will take risks when the time is right, that they will chase their true desires when it is safer to do so. But that day will never come. There will never be a moment when life suddenly grants you permission to be who you were meant to be. If you wait for the perfect time, you will wait forever. This is why Nietzsche calls upon us to embrace amor fati, the love of fate. Not resignation, not passive acceptance, but an active, passionate embrace of everything that life brings. To live in such a way that we would not wish for things to be different, but instead, we would affirm every moment, every struggle, every hardship as an essential part of our own self-creation. Amor fati is the final step in the journey of self-overcoming. It is what allows us to not only endure struggle, but to rejoice in it, to see every challenge as an opportunity to grow, every failure as a lesson, every hardship as fuel for the will to power. It is the mindset of those who do not wait for progress to save them, but instead seize life with both hands and make it their own. But there is still one more realization we must confront, one final, terrifying truth that separates those who live boldly from those who remain enslaved to illusion. And that truth is this: there is no meaning except the one you create. There is no grand cosmic purpose, no external force shaping your destiny, no hidden design that will one day be revealed. The world is indifferent, chaotic, and without inherent meaning. And for many, this realization is unbearable. This is why people cling to the illusion of progress. It comforts them. It gives them the sense that life is leading somewhere, that their struggles are part of a greater plan, that one day everything will make sense. But Nietzsche's challenge is to reject this lie and create meaning anyway. Not because meaning exists outside of us, but because we have the power to impose meaning upon the world, to decide, with full awareness of life's absurdity, that we will not wait for a purpose to be given to us, but instead we will declare our own purpose. This is the mindset of the Übermensch, the individual who has gone beyond hope, beyond illusion, beyond the comfort of external narratives, and who has taken full control of their own destiny. The Übermensch does not need a god, does not need history to be moving in a specific direction, does not need false promises of salvation or utopia. The Übermensch creates, destroys, and recreates, endlessly shaping their own values, their own goals, their own sense of what is worth pursuing. And this is where Nietzsche's greatest challenge to you emerges. If you truly understand his warning, if you see through the illusion of progress, if you reject fear, if you embrace the will to power and amor fati, then what is stopping you from acting? What excuse do you have left? The moment you realize that nothing is holding you back except yourself, you are faced with a choice. You can either continue to wait, clinging to old illusions, convincing yourself that someday you will truly live, or you can take full responsibility for your existence. You can stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop lying to yourself. You can look at the life you have now and ask, would I live this exact life again for eternity? And if the answer is no, then you know what must be done, not tomorrow, not next year, not when the time feels right. Now. Because this is the final truth, the ultimate realization that Nietzsche leaves us with. There is no one coming to save you. No progress that will make everything right. No destiny waiting for you. There is only you, your will, your choices, your power. And that is both the greatest burden and the greatest freedom you will ever know. So I ask you again, what will you do? Thanks for looking.